Wait, hold on a second. Are the Toronto Blue Jays seriously about to trade Jose Berrios after he just helped carry them to within one out of a World Series championship? Because if this trade proposal from Heavy.com becomes reality, we might be witnessing one of the most baffling front office decisions in recent Blue Jays history, and trust me, that's saying something for a franchise that's made its fair share of head-scratching moves. Let me set the stage here, because this situation is absolutely wild. The Blue Jays have struck out, and I mean struck out swinging, on their last 3 major free agent targets: Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, and Cody Bellinger. 3 swings, 3 misses. That's the kind of failure that makes front offices panic, and when front offices panic, they start making desperate moves. Enter this trade proposal. Jose Berrios, the 31-year-old right-hander with 3 years and roughly $54 million remaining on his 7-year, $131 million deal, heading to the Atlanta Braves in exchange for 3-time All-Star second baseman Ozzie Albies and shortstop prospect Alex Lodice. Now, before we dive deep into whether this makes any sense whatsoever, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. The Blue Jays rotation is getting crowded. They brought in Dylan Cease via trade and added Cody Ponce this offseason. They've still got Kevin Gausman anchoring the staff, and there's Chris Bassett potentially returning if he re-signs. So yes, mathematically speaking, Berios could be considered expendable. But here's where the logic falls apart faster than a knuckleball in a hurricane. Why would you trade a proven, durable innings eater who just helped you get to the World Series when you're supposedly trying to win now? Mark Bowman from MLB.com floated this idea earlier in January, suggesting Berios could be a wild-card trade option for Atlanta. The Braves desperately need starting pitching after watching the New York Mets swoop in and grab Freddie Peralta, and they're running out of time before spring training. With Spencer Schwellenbach and Chris Sale leading their rotation, Atlanta doesn't need an ace. They need exactly what Berios provides: reliability, durability, and the ability to eat 160-plus innings without breaking down. But let's talk about what Toronto would be getting back, because this is where things get really interesting. Ozzie Albies is a fan favorite in Atlanta, a 3-time All-Star who spent his entire 8-year career with the Braves. He's also playing under one of the most team-friendly contracts in baseball, a club option for 2026 worth just $7 million. That's absolute peanuts for a player of his caliber and pedigree. However, and this is a massive however, Albies is coming off 2 consecutive down years at the plate. His power numbers have declined, his batting average has dipped, and there are legitimate questions about whether he's still the dynamic player who made those all-star teams. The Blue Jays would also receive Alex Lodice, a shortstop prospect in Atlanta's system. He's not a household name, not a top 100 prospect, but he represents organizational depth and potential future value. For a Blue Jays team that's been hemorrhaging talent and missing out on free agents, adding a controllable all-star infielder and a prospect might seem like a reasonable return for a starting pitcher they could theoretically replace internally. But here's where we need to pump the brakes and really analyze what Jose Berrios brings to the table, because his value goes far beyond just his ERA and innings pitched. Since 2019, Berios has made 32 starts in a season 5 times. 5 times! Do you understand how rare that level of consistency and durability is in modern baseball? We're living in an era where starting pitchers are treated like porcelain dolls, where teams celebrate when a guy makes 28 starts without hitting the injured list. Berios is the definition of an Iron Man, and that reliability is worth its weight in gold for any contending team. In 2025, Berios posted a 4.17 ERA over 166 innings. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. 4.17 ERA? That's not exactly Cy Young material. And you're absolutely right. But context matters here. Berios has consistently been a low 4.00 ERA pitcher over the last several seasons, which means he's predictable, he's stable, and he's exactly the kind of pitcher you can pencil into your rotation and know what you're getting every 5th day. There's no mystery, no guesswork, no wondering if he's going to implode and give up 7 runs in 3 innings. He's the baseball equivalent of a reliable sedan. Not flashy, not exciting, but it gets you where you need to go every single time. For the Atlanta Braves, this trade makes perfect sense from a pure baseball standpoint. They need starting pitching depth. They have a surplus of infielders with Albies, Orlando Arcia, and prospects pushing for playing time, and Berios' $18 million average annual value is completely manageable for their payroll. The Braves have built their recent success on having young, controllable starters on team-friendly deals. Guys like Spencer Strider, Kyle Wright, and Max Fried before his departure. Adding Berios gives them that veteran presence without breaking the bank or mortgaging their future. But let's flip the script and look at this from Toronto's perspective, because this is where the trade proposal starts to unravel. The Blue Jays just came within 1 out of winning the World Series. 1 single out. They were that close to championship glory, and now they're supposedly considering trading away one of the key pieces who helped get them there. That's not roster management. That's organizational panic masquerading as strategic thinking. Yes, Ozzie Albies is a 3-time All-Star with a ridiculously team-friendly contract. Yes, he provides Gold Glove caliber defense at second base and has proven he can perform on baseball's biggest stages. But he's also 28 years old, coming off back-to-back down seasons where his offensive production declined significantly. His 2024 and 2025 campaigns saw his OPS drop below .750, his home run totals crater, and his overall impact diminish. You're essentially betting that a change of scenery and the Rogers Center's hitter-friendly dimensions can resurrect his career. That's a huge gamble when you're giving up a proven commodity like Berios. And let's address the rotation depth argument, because it's not as clear-cut as it seems. Yes, the Blue Jays added Dylan Cease and Cody Ponce. Yes, they have Kevin Gausman locked in. But Chris Bassett's future with the team is still uncertain. He's a free agent and hasn't re-signed yet. If Bassett walks and Toronto trades Berios, suddenly that crowded rotation becomes alarmingly thin. You'd be relying on Cease, who has injury concerns, Gausman, who's 35 years old, Ponce, who's never been a full-time starter, and whatever internal options you can cobble together. That's not a championship-caliber rotation. That's a recipe for disaster. The timing of this potential trade is also suspect. We're less than a month away from spring training, and teams have historically been more desperate and willing to overpay as opening day approaches. If the Blue Jays are serious about moving Berios, why not wait until a contender loses a starter to injury in spring training and suddenly becomes desperate for innings? Why not leverage the market and create a bidding war rather than accepting what appears to be a lateral move at best? So, where does all of this leave us as we head into the final weeks before pitchers and catchers report? We're watching a potential trade that makes sense for one team and absolutely baffles the mind for the other. The Atlanta Braves would be getting exactly what they need: a durable, reliable innings eater who can slot into the middle of their rotation and provide stability. The Toronto Blue Jays would be getting a declining all-star infielder and a mid-level prospect in exchange for one of the most consistent starting pitchers in baseball. That's not addition by subtraction, that's subtraction by subtraction. The broader context here is what really concerns me about Toronto's potential decision-making. This is a franchise that just experienced its greatest postseason success in years, came within 1 out of ultimate glory, and now appears to be on the verge of making reactionary moves because they struck out on a few free agents. That's not how championship organizations operate. Championship organizations stay the course, trust their core, and make calculated improvements around the edges. They don't panic trade proven commodities because they're feeling pressure from the fan base or the media. If I'm the Blue Jays front office, I'm asking myself some hard questions before even considering this deal. Can Ozzie Albies return to his all-star form, or are we buying high on name recognition and past performance? Do we have enough rotation depth to survive if injuries strike? Are we making this move because it genuinely improves our championship odds, or are we just making a move to make a move? Because there's a massive difference between those two motivations, and history is littered with teams that made desperate trades they later regretted. For the Braves, this is a no-brainer. You're moving an aging infielder coming off down seasons and a prospect for a proven starter who can immediately help your championship aspirations. You're addressing your biggest need without surrendering any of your elite young talent. It's the kind of trade that General Manager Alex Anthopoulos has built his reputation on, buying low on perceived value and selling high on name recognition. But baseball trades aren't just about what makes sense on paper. They're about organizational philosophy, championship windows, and having the courage to stick with your core when times get tough. The Blue Jays are in their window right now. They have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in his prime. They have a strong bullpen. They have the pieces to compete for a World Series. Trading Jose Berrios doesn't make them better in 2026. It makes them different. And different isn't always better when you're already knocking on championship's door. Here's what I need from all of you. Do you think the Blue Jays should pull the trigger on this trade? Are they panicking after missing out on free agents? Or is this actually a smart move that improves their roster construction? And Braves fans, would you be happy to see Ozzie Albies leave Atlanta after everything he's meant to that franchise? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you think Toronto would be making a massive mistake. And let's have a real debate about whether this trade proposal is genius or insanity. Because with spring training right around the corner, we're about to find out if the Blue Jays have the guts to stand pat, or if they're going to make a move that could haunt them for years to come.